Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have another great show for you today on Monday. Let's see. First, leaked crime scene images. Now, I can't show them to you, but I can describe what evil looks like. And wait till you hear what he did. Concerns amount over potential leaks of sensitive medical records in the Reiner family. Brendan Banfield, the murder trial is delayed because of snowstorm, but guess what? When it resumes, we'll bring it to you, and he's supposed to testify. A former South Carolina prison guard charged with assisting an inmate. We've got this day in legal history, our quote of the day, and our dumb criminal. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. We all hope you had a wonderful weekend. I can tell you I'm a little disappointed. I went to the Broncos game that was this Sunday. It was a little cold. It was a little chilly, a little snowy at the end of it. And unfortunately, the Broncos came up short. And so this team out of New England, I didn't even know New England had a football team, to be honest with you, until they showed up yesterday and barely clinched it because of the lackluster performance by the Broncos. But we digress. All right. Let's get down to other business. All right. First, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com and sign up for that background subscription service today. Listen, you hear about it every day. People meeting somebody online, disappearing, never coming back. You need to check people out. Go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do as many searches as you desire. You're going to get all types of information. You're going to be able to check out their social media sites, find out how many emails they have, how many phone numbers they have. Why do they have 6 burner numbers, right? Little questions like that. Most importantly, find out if they have a criminal history, okay? You're going to find out if they're on a sex offender registry. I've had people send me messages and say, Scott, I'm glad I did this. I checked this guy out. And guess what? It turned out he had a bunch of crimes against children in his background. You just have to be, you can't be too safe these days. Go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. And remember, you can cancel at any time. So whether you want to do one search or 1,000 searches, you can do as many as you want while you have that subscription. And you can check out not just people you're going to be dating on, people that are going to be coming into your life. Maybe the kids that your kids are starting to hang out with. Maybe you want to check out their parents too. Make sure they're a good influence. See, are they coming from a bunch of bad seeds or what? Go to crimetalksearch.com. You'll be happy you did. All right. We're also doing this week, ladies and gentlemen. All right. If you purchase any items of merchandise this week, but starting today through next Monday, you will go into an automatic drawing. All right. And what is that automatic drawing going to sign you up for? That's right. To win $100 cash. So you buy a keychain for $5, $10, you're in the drawing to win $100 cash. We'll just keep it right there so y'all know it's there. Okay. It's there. The whole time I'm going to keep it there to remind you to go get your Crime Talk merch. You're going to be happy you did. It looks good on you. All right, get it. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for Monday, January 26, 2026, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks here about these leaked images, the crime scene images in the Kohberger matter. So let's back up. And then I want to tell you what evil looks like, right? I can't show you what evil looks like, but I can describe it. I got it here on my screen, and you're going to be able to see it as well. So, in a recent development surrounding the 2022 University of Idaho murders, a collection of nearly 2,800 previously unreleased crime scene photographs had surfaced, offering a stark glimpse into the aftermath of the brutal killings. Now, these images, briefly made available online by the Idaho State Police before being removed, highlighted the profound contrast between the victims' vibrant daily lives and the violent events that claimed them. Now, the photographs obtained through public records requests underscores the senseless nature of the crimes committed by Bryan Kohberger, who obviously is pled guilty and now been sentenced, and he pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. And let me tell you why, because when you hear what he did, he knew that the jury was going to give him the death penalty. He knew he was going to lose, and he knew he was going to get death. So as you know by now, the victims, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were students at the University of Idaho, residing in the off-campus house on King Road there in Idaho. Now, the residence depicted in the images as a quintessential college home, featuring scattered empty beverage cans, discarded high heels, and unwashed dishes, reflecting the carefree routines of young adults enjoying their weekends. Wall decorations, such as a banner proclaiming Saturday night is for the girls, and motivational quotes like "the universe has big plans for me," emphasize their optimism and obviously their young energy. Now, according to details from the photographs, Kohberger allegedly entered the property through an unlocked rear door around 4 a.m. on November 13th. He proceeded to the upper floor where Gonsalves and Mogan were sleeping in the same bed following a night out. Images reveal blood-soaked beddings and spattered walls in Mogan's room, with an untouched mood board of inspirational messages hanging nearby, creating a somewhat haunting juxtaposition. Now, adjacent areas show everyday items left undisturbed: a laptop on a desk and amid unfinished assignments, jewelry on stands, and half-consumed drinks, all frozen in time. Kohberger then descended to the second floor, targeting Kernodle's bedroom, where she and Chapin were spending the night. The photographs of this space are particularly disturbing, displaying overturned furniture, smeared blood on cabinets and floors, and redactions over mirrors and beds to conceal graphic elements. Now, the evidence of a struggle is evident in the disarray, including displaced items and trails of blood, suggesting the victims resisted the attack. Throughout the house, applications of luminol, a substance that detects trace blood, illuminated blood glows on the stairwells, banisters, and walls, revealing the extent of the violence, even seemingly unaffected areas. Now, the Idaho State Police officials explained that the images were initially released in response to numerous public inquiries, but were withdrawn for review to address privacy concerns. Now, a spokesperson stated that the agency aims to balance transparency with the sensitivity toward the affected families, and revised versions may be reissued. Now, while direct depictions of the victims or their bodies were redacted, obviously, and the overall scenes conveys the intensity of the assault, including structural damage where blood seeped through the building's exterior. Now, the release has prompted, obviously, emotional reactions, particularly among the parents and peers who see parallels to their own lives. Now, the absence of the clear motive, Kohberger had no known ties to the victim, amplifies the tragedy's impact, leaving many to grapple with the randomness of the act. Families of the victims have expressed frustration over the plea deal, which is obviously it's a done deal by now, and there's nothing that can be done about that. They avoided a trial and may have denied them, obviously, some closure. Now, these photographs serve as a somber reminder of the lives interrupted, promising young individuals whose futures were abruptly ended in a place meant for safety and camaraderie. Now, as the investigation into the leak continues, the images reinforce the enduring public interest in underscoring the full scope of the heinous event. Now, I have said that I think that there should be complete and total transparency, not only in the Kohberger case, but frankly, in any case that's of public interest. And even if it isn't in public interest, everyone should be able to do that. And I say that not because I have some gory desire to look at, autopsy photos or crime scene photos. Heck, I can open up a file and do that on my own in my own office if that was something I wanted to do. Okay. But I've seen enough of those over the years. Frankly, they don't faze me. Okay. I've often said I could eat my lunch looking at autopsy photos. It just doesn't faze me anymore because I think I've seen so much of it, unfortunately. But the reason why I say people need to see what's going on out there is because they need to be able to see and identify, okay, what true evil looks like. Now, remember, there are still people out there that think Bryan Kohberger is innocent, regardless of the DNA, regardless of all his phone evidence, right? Regardless of the fact that he pled guilty in open court and engaged in a colloquy with the judge on the record where he admitted to killing 4 people after deliberation and the burglary as well, receiving 4 consecutive life sentences, knowing that he was going to go to prison for the rest of his life. Despite that, there are still people out there that believe that he is innocent. Okay. And somehow they choose to believe in some crazy notion. Oh, well, if you think about this and you think about that, then suddenly it's plausible that somebody else could have done this, even though he pled guilty to it. All right. And so what I was thinking about is there's a summary that was put out of the autopsies. Obviously, we don't need to do the autopsies, but what I'm saying is you need to be able to see what true evil looks like. Okay. And when you look at these, so this is autopsies. All autopsies were performed by the chief medical examiner and forensic pathologist, Veena Singh, MD, MPH, at the Spokane, Washington office of the medical examiner, Kaylee Gonsalves. Date and time of the autopsy, November 16th, 4:50 p.m. Cause of death, multiple sharp force injuries. Significant contributors to death, blunt force injuries of the head, asphyxial injuries. Significant findings include 1. Stab and incise wounds of the scalp, face, and neck 24 plus times. 24, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine what a K-bar coming down on somebody with full force some 24 times is going to do to them. Next, stab and incise wounds of the chest 11 times. Stab and incise wounds of the upper extremities 3. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. How's that not the epitome of premeditation? Puncture of the outer table of the skull, injuries to teeth and tongue, perforations of the subclavian artery and vein, hemorrhage into the chest cavities, blunt force injuries including scalp lacerations, bleeding around the brain, nasal fractures, scrapes on the nose and cheeks, bruising around the eyes, patterned bruises extended across the lower face. Petechial hemorrhages were present in the eyes and mouth, and the blood alcohol was 0.107. How about Madison Mogen's autopsy? November 16th, 2:25 p.m. Multiple sharp force injuries. Stab and incise wounds of the scalp, face, and neck 13 times, ladies and gentlemen. Stab wounds to the chest 5. Incise wounds of the upper extremities 10. Wounds of the lung and liver, perforation of the subclavian vein, subclavian artery, and blood vessels of the chest wall. Blood alcohol, 0.282. Other findings, incisions of the nasal septum, perforation of the tongue and oral mucosa, fluid in the upper and lower airways. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. 13 stab wounds to the scalp, face, and neck. With this, a K-bar. Imagine that coming down 13 times. Another 5 times in the chest. Another 10 to the other upper extremities. He knew he was going to do that. And like I said, it's not some grotesque idea, but this is what the people need to see. Evil truly exists. And maybe you don't need to see it, I guess, but I think you should be able to if you want to. And so you can show it to people and say, this is what this guy did. And you really think he would plead guilty if he didn't do that? It's horrible. No one pleads guilty to something like that unless they did it. How about Miss Kernodle? Autopsy, November 16th. Cause of death, multiple sharp force injuries. Other injuries, abrasions and contusions of the head, torso, and extremities. Significant findings include stab and incise wounds of the scalp, face, and neck 23 times. Stab wounds to the chest, 7. Stab wounds to the abdomen, 4. Incise and puncture wounds of the back, 3. Incised wounds of the upper extremities, 25. Wounds of the lower extremities, 5. Punctures of the outer table of the skull. Perforations of the jugular vein, heart, lung, and pulmonary blood vessels. Hemorrhage in the chest cavities. Wounds extended into the bones of the right hand. Scrapes and bruises on the face, torso, and extremities. Blood alcohol, 0.229. Also had an amphetamine level of 12 nanograms in the blood. Abundant, bloody, mucoid material in the airways. How about Ethan Chapin? Multiple sharp forced injuries, cause of death. Stab wounds and incise wounds of the scalp, face, and neck. 4. Stab wounds to the upper chest, 1. Incise wounds of the upper extremities, 6. Stab and incise wounds to the lower extremities, 6. Perforation of the jugular vein, subclavian vein, and the subclavian artery. Blood alcohol content, 0.122. Amphetamine level of 260 grams, nanogram levels. So ladies and gentlemen, we talk about this. I can't show you what evil looks like, but I can just read it to you and describe how many times. And you think about that. Think about that, all right? something this size from a K-bar, scalp, face, and neck while somebody's asleep 24 times, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not for some sick or perverse things that people need to see that. People need to see and understand that true evil exists out there. And so next time something like this happens, you can say, oh yeah, that's evil. What he did was evil, ladies and gentlemen. And when he's pled guilty, it's game over. He is, as a matter of law and as a matter of fact, he is done. He admitted to it because he knew once the jury saw those photographs, he knew he was going to get the death penalty. And simply out of compassion, privacy, I guess, the court said, we're not going to release these images. But like I said, I'm of the mindset that the public has a right to know. They should be able to see what's going on in their community, who's doing what in their community. And so if there's any doubt as to whether A, got the right guy, and B, that he is truly, in fact, evil, you can simply take a look at those photographs, ladies and gentlemen. Next, let's talk about the Rob Reiner murder and that of his wife, all right? So in the wake of the tragic deaths of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, their family is reportedly grappling with heightened anxiety over the possible public disclosure of confidential medical details related to their son, Nick Reiner, who faces murder charges in connection with the incident. Now, sources close to the matter indicate that such a revelation could compound the profound emotional distress already endured by those affected. Now, Reiner was arrested back in December of 2025 and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder following the fatal stabbing of his parents at their residence there in Brentwood, California. Obviously, if he's convicted, he could face life imprisonment without the possibility of parole and possibly even the death penalty, but that seems unlikely. Now, the case has obviously got a lot of attention because of the family's prominence in the entertainment industry and the underlying complexities involving the mental health issues that we are learning about as it relates to Nick Reiner. Now, according to this individual familiar with the family situation, the Reiners have long prioritized discretion in handling Nick's health challenges, which constitute a diagnosis of schizophrenia and a history of substance dependency. These matters were addressed through private medical interventions and conservatorships established as early as 2020, obviously to shield them from external scrutiny. However, as legal proceedings advance, there is an apprehension that court documents, including conservatorship records and psychiatric evaluations, might enter into the public domain. Oh, yes. There'll be a protective order, but they'll get out. Anyway, the family has invested considerable effort in maintaining privacy around these sensitive issues, which remained unknown to the broader public. The source let everybody know, and the prospect of this information becoming widely accessible is profoundly upsetting and could intensify the grief surrounding this whole ordeal. Now, obviously, court records revealed the judicial measures have been implemented to safeguard these materials, such as the autopsy reports from the medical examiner's office, underscoring the ongoing effort to balance transparency in the justice system with personal privacy. Now, despite these protections, this insider emphasized the human element at the core of the case. Now, beyond the courtroom battles, this represents a deep-seated family crisis, and the potential exposure of private records threatens to reopen these unhealed wounds for everyone who held Rob, Michelle, and Nick dear. Now, the incident has sparked broader discussion, for example, like on platforms, social media platforms, where users have shared sympathies, analyzing families' histories, and debating implications for mental health advocacy in prominent cases. Some have even noted that the challenges of managing severe mental illness with supportive yet highly profile environments, highlighting the tragedy of the multifaceted nature of this case. Now, we're going to have to see where this whole thing goes. Obviously, we'll have a better idea when Nick Reiner appears in court here shortly in the next couple of weeks for a continued arraignment. We'll see if competency issues are raised or if there's a not guilty by reason of insanity plea that is also raised. Now, there's also been some reports that the people close to the Reiner family are saying that Rob and his wife would not want their son Nick incarcerated. Now, unfortunately, or the way it works out is he has no say in the matter whatsoever. Only thing it probably affects is whether they go for the death penalty or something along those lines. But here's the thing I've mentioned. I've mentioned this before. All right. Now, I grew up, I thought everybody else's household was perfect. Then come to find out that houses like mine, everybody was, that I thought I was the only one that had the dysfunctional family, right? Then when I got to do this job as a criminal defense attorney, I realized everybody has a dysfunctional family. I don't care what your socioeconomic status is, how many degrees you have, your educational background or lack thereof. Just about everybody has a dysfunctional family. The Reiner family shows kind of a dysfunctional family. Yes, they had the resources and the means to do this. Do you really think that Nick Reiner would have made it to 32 years old without involvement with the court system if he didn't have parents that were wealthy? Absolutely not. But it just shows you everybody deals with this stuff. And like I said, I grew up thinking we were the only screwed up family on the block. And to come to find out, hey, everybody has issues. Everybody. And I don't care how wealthy you are or not. So it's going to be an interesting case to watch. The whole privacy issues, it's all coming out, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, let's face it. We already know he had mental health issues. We know he had drug issues. Hell, he wrote a book about it. So why not get it out there to see the extent of it, of how bad it possibly is? Heck, could save his life. It could potentially save him from obviously the death penalty or spending the rest of his life in custody. Who knows? Maybe he can get the treatment and maybe possibly get out if there's some sort of NGRI plea. Next, the Brendan Banfield trial was delayed. That's right. The Fairfax County government, they closed their courthouse today. So the major storm that blanketed the region in snow closed the Fairfax County courthouse, delaying the Brendan Banfield murder trial. Now, last Wednesday, the judge warned jurors in the high-profile murder trial of early forecasts and said the court could be closed for several days. The judge noted that she is chasing a snowstorm. Anyway, the judge also indicated that the court could be closed until Thursday if there was really up to 2 feet of snow. Final snow totals on Sunday, however, put the Fairfax County at nearly 7 inches. Now, Brendan Banfield is accused of killing his wife, Christine Banfield, and a stranger, a guy by the name of Joseph Ryan, who he allegedly lured to the house on a sexual fetish website. Now, the former IRS agent had an affair with the family's au pair, and the couple allegedly set up the whole plot. Now, the au pair took a plea deal and testified against Mr. Banfield, and the trial was scheduled to last up to 4 weeks, but the prosecution called all of its witnesses by last Tuesday. Now, the judge said that they are not at risk of exceeding the latest possible end of the trial of February 6th because they are so far ahead of schedule. However, the judge did push for the defense to rest on Friday, which was added as an extra court day to get ahead of the weekend snow, but defense attorneys spent nearly the whole day on one witness. And at the end of the day, she admonished the defense for their disorganization, which was causing confusion and delays, and asked the attorneys to use the snow days to regroup, which is code for get your act together. Now, Brendan Banfield himself is expected to take the stand when the trial resumes. So watch it here, ladies and gentlemen. We've been bringing it to you the whole time. And when they resume trial, we'll bring it to you as well. And I'm going to love to see what Mr. Banfield has to say as to why his au pair says that they set up this whole plot to lure this guy into the house thinking he's going to come meet the wife for a little fetish thing and then kill them both, saying he was saving his wife after the guy came in to kill her. I'm going to love to see that explanation. Next, a former South Carolina prison guard is in custody and in trouble for helping an inmate. Police have arrested a previous employee of the South Carolina Department of Corrections for her alleged role in enabling an inmate to obscure evidence related to an attempted homicide within the prison facility. Shema Tanisha Tony, who's 42 and faces allegations of being an accessory after the fact to a serious crime and official misconduct. Now, the charges stem from events that transpired on January 2nd at the Tuberville Correctional Institution, as detailed in the arrest affidavit. Now, according to the arrest warrant, Tony, who was on duty as a correctional officer at the time, neglected her responsibility to ensure the safety of both prisoners and personnel. She reportedly possessed prior awareness that an inmate was armed with a knife, which was subsequently used in an attack on another individual housed at the prison. Following the assault, Tony is accused of further supporting the perpetrator by not intervening as the inmate acquired, hid, and eliminated the weapon involved in the offense, thereby impeding the potential legal proceedings. Additionally, the warrant indicates that she omitted to inform her superior about critical aspects of the stabbing incident. Now, law enforcement compiled supporting evidence through a review of institutional records, security camera footage, photographs, documentation, healthcare records, and testimonials from correctional personnel, fellow inmates, and the affected party. Tony was detained at a detention center and subsequently released upon posting a $20,000 bond. Sometimes, that's what happens when the inmates become a little too close to the personnel working at the prison. They get them to do things. Remember the lady in, Kentucky that helped her boyfriend on death row to escape, and they went on a little wild jaunt and ultimately wound up getting her killed, and he's still alive. There just cannot be any interaction whatsoever. I hate to say it, everybody's in custody is human, but they're very manipulative when they're in custody, and particularly if they're looking at an extended stay at the inn, so to speak, they will manipulate and do whatever they can to make their life a little easier, even if it means attacking another prisoner. Next on the docket, this day in legal history, on January 26th, several notable legal events have occurred in the United States. Let's get to it. In 1830, Senator Daniel Webster delivered his renowned second reply to Hayne speech in the U.S. Senate, a pivotal oration defending federal authority and national unity against states' rights arguments, which influenced the constitutional interpretation for generations. In 1837, and going back to that, yes, you have states' rights, but you still have a federal government in the constitutional republic. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. But federal law is the supreme law of the lands. And if it's not specifically a federal issue, the states get to do what they want. But if it is a federal issue, federal law applies, and it is supreme. It's called the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution. Next, on this date in 1837, Michigan was admitted to the Union as the 26th state through the Act of Congress, resolving territorial disputes and expanding the nation's legal framework under the Northwest Ordinance. And on this date in 1838, Tennessee enacted the first statewide prohibition law in the United States, prohibiting the sale of alcoholic beverages and establishing a precedent for temperance legislation that foreshadowed national prohibition. Next on the docket, how about our quote of the day? Now, I found this quote because I got a notice that accounting had paid for a vehicle to be renewed for their license plates and taxes, and the tax on the plates. Of course, you get. You pay taxes when you buy the car, and then every year you get taxed, when you keep the car. But what really is frustrating is you don't just have the taxes. There were over $100 in fees, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we have a little thing here called the Tabor Amendment in the state of Colorado, which says you can't have a new tax unless it is voter approved. So the politicians here in the Colorado Supreme Court says, whoa. There's a difference between a tax and a fee. So here's the quote. A tax is a charge imposed upon citizens to defray the cost of government services and operations generally, whereas a fee is a charge imposed upon certain citizens or entities who use a particular service of or obtain benefits from a particular governmental program or agency to defray the cost of those services or benefits. So, for example, all right, total cost to renew these license plates were $925. Okay. Now we have an aged vehicle add-on fee. All right. Now understand this car is 2 years old, and so they charged me $9 for having an aged car. The registration base fee was $15.50. The bridge safety surcharge was $18. The clerk hire fee, $4. The county road and bridge fee, 94 cents. The emissions area air account, $1.50. Emergency medical services, $2. Emissions program, another 70 cents. Another emissions statewide account, 50 cents. An insurance fee, I didn't know the government was in insurance fee business, but another 50 cents. Motorist insurance database fee, another 10 cents. Peace officer standardization training fee, $1. Annual retired plate disability fee, $25. I had to look this one up because I was like, are you kidding me? Retired plate fee. Yes, that's because they are charging people to get rid of the old license plate so they can go with the red, black, and the I think blue is the other color. And so that's so they actually pick your plates up better on the tracking that they do on all the highways. It's not because, they just think it's going to look cool because everybody's going to have all the same plates pretty soon. So $25 to retire the old license plates. How about that road safety surcharge? Materials fee, for the little tag, that's 48 cents. And then, of course, you add in the $826.43 to the ownership tax, because you pay taxes on the money that you bought the car with. You pay taxes when you buy it. And now you get to pay taxes for the privilege of keeping the property so that you can pay taxes on it. So anyway, hate to vent with you, ladies and gentlemen, but the reality of it is it just really chaps my hide. And it's bad enough that you have to pay $826 on a car that is already yours, and you're paying that fee. And then, like I said, you get another 100 and some odd bucks in fees, ladies and gentlemen, on fees. Thanks for letting me vent. I appreciate that. Thank you. And next on the docket, our dumb criminal of the day. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal of the day. A 26-year-old woman by the name of Jarboni Carr is facing charges after allegedly striking a woman in the face with a go-kart neck brace at Full Throttle Adrenaline Park in Springdale, Ohio. Police reports say that Carr was arrested on Thursday following this incident. And according to employees, Ms. Carr became upset after being asked to leave the premises. In addition to the alleged assault with the neck brace, Carr is accused of shoving a 16-year-old and resisting arrest. All the information that we have right there, little concerning. They ask her to leave, obviously for some legitimate reason. And then she attacks and pushes a 16-year-old. Wow. Dumb criminal of the day, Miss Carr. Congratulations, you made it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.